The wind howled through the dusty streets of Ouagadougou, whispering secrets of a past buried deep beneath the soil. The grave of Thomas Sankara, the fallen revolutionary hero, stood still in the heart of a country that had witnessed too much pain, yet carried the weight of a forgotten truth. But on this fateful day, what Ibrahim Traoré uncovered here would send shockwaves through the world. The golden hues of the late afternoon sun reflected off the worn stone of the grave, casting long shadows that stretched out across the land. It was as if the very earth held its breath in the presence of the past, waiting for something to be revealed, something that had been hidden for far too long. As Ibrahim Traoré, the young military officer, stood before the grave of Sankara, the air around him seemed to hum with unspoken stories, untold histories, and the weight of unfulfilled promises. Ibrahim's eyes were locked on the weathered gravestone, his mind heavy with the burden of the responsibility he had taken upon himself. Sankara, the man who had dared to dream of a united and free Africa, had been taken from the world too soon. But his legacy, his vision remained, a vision that Ibrahim was now entrusted to carry forward. The world had turned its back on Sankara's ideals, but Ibrahim knew that it was time for Africa to rise again. The revolution had not ended. It was merely sleeping, waiting for someone to awaken it. The country had suffered for years under the weight of foreign influence, corruption, and exploitation. For too long, Africa had been forced to dance to the tune of outsiders, its people oppressed by systems that were designed to keep them down. But now, as Ibrahim stood on the precipice of his own revolution, he felt the call of Sankara's spirit, urging him forward. Sankara's vision of a sovereign Africa, free from the chains of colonialism and imperialism, was more important now than ever. The question in Ibrahim's mind, however, was whether the world was ready to listen. Ibrahim had come to this sacred ground not just to honor Sankara's memory, but to find answers, to understand what had gone wrong, what had been buried alongside Sankara's body, and what the future held for Africa. The air was thick with history, and Ibrahim could feel the weight of the centuries pressing down on him. He knelt before the grave, feeling the cool stone beneath his fingers, as if reaching out to touch the past. The scent of earth and decay mixed with the faint smell of flowers that grew wild around the grave, adding an almost surreal quality to the moment. It was then that he heard the soft sound of footsteps behind him. Ibrahim turned to find a boy, standing just a few feet away, his face worn with hardship but his eyes burning with a strange intensity. The boy looked no older than 15, but there was a depth to his gaze that suggested a wisdom beyond his years. His clothes were simple and torn, but his posture was straight, as if he carried a weight much greater than his small frame could bear. The boy didn't speak at first, but Ibrahim could feel his presence, could feel the pull of something unspoken between them. The boy's gaze never wavered from Ibrahim, as if he had been waiting for this moment his entire life. The air between them seemed to hum with a quiet tension, a silent recognition of something that neither of them could yet fully understand. "I know what you're searching for," the boy said softly, his voice raw, yet somehow filled with the weight of generations of struggle. Ibrahim's heart skipped a beat. He had been so absorbed in his thoughts in the weight of the moment that he hadn't noticed the boy's approach. "What do you mean?" Ibrahim asked, his voice steady, though a flicker of uncertainty passed through his chest. The boy stepped closer, his eyes never leaving Ibrahim's. "The truth you seek is not just in the grave," he said. "It's buried deeper, beneath the earth, beneath the lies that have been told for generations." Ibrahim's pulse quickened. There was something in the boy's words, something that resonated deep within him. He stood, his eyes locked on. The boy, as a surge of urgency flooded through him. "Show me," he said, his voice tight with anticipation. Without a word, the boy turned and began walking, his steps sure and purposeful. Ibrahim followed him, feeling an odd mixture of curiosity and apprehension. The boy led him down a narrow path overgrown with weeds and nearly hidden by the dense trees that surrounded the graveyard. The air grew cooler as they walked, and Ibrahim could hear the distant sound of birds calling to one another in the fading light. The path twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the graveyard away from the main site. It felt like they were walking through time itself, stepping into a hidden world where secrets had been buried long ago. The boy didn't speak as they walked, but Ibrahim could feel the weight of his words pressing on his mind. Finally, they reached a secluded corner of the graveyard, where the trees seemed to form a natural barrier, shutting out the rest of the world. In the center of this small clearing was a stone slab covered in thick layers of moss and dirt. The boy paused before it, his hand resting lightly on the stone. "This is where the truth lies," the boy said quietly, his voice barely a whisper. Ibrahim's heart raced as he approached the stone. It seemed ordinary enough at first, just another marker in the graveyard. But as he knelt down beside it, his fingers brushed against something cold and hard beneath the moss. There was a faint shimmer, like the glint of metal. The boy stepped aside, allowing Ibrahim to examine the stone more closely. With trembling hands, Ibrahim began to clear away the moss, revealing a small weathered chest hidden beneath the slab. The boy watched him closely, his expression unreadable. "What's inside will change everything you know," he said. Ibrahim hesitated for a moment before lifting the chest from its resting place. The weight of it was heavier than he had expected, as if it contained more than just a few old papers. His fingers shook as he opened it, and inside he found a bundle of documents, their edges worn and faded by time. As he unfolded one of the papers, his eyes widened in shock. It was a letter, one that had been written in Sankara's own hand. The words were faint, but they were unmistakable. The letter spoke of an alliance, a covert operation, and a betrayal of the highest order. Ibrahim's breath caught in his throat as he read the words, the realization dawning on him with a force that nearly knocked the wind from his lungs. Sankara had known the truth, but had been silenced before he could expose it. The documents revealed something far darker than Ibrahim had ever imagined. Sankara's enemies were not just the usual political adversaries. They were global forces, manipulating events from the shadows, controlling the very systems that had doomed his revolution from the start. The power that had crushed Sankara was not just local, it was international, a web of influence that reached across the globe, silencing anyone who dared to challenge the status quo. But it was the last document that truly shook Ibrahim to his core. It was a map, marked with locations around the world, each one tied to a series of events that had shaped the modern political landscape. The map was more than just a list of places. It was a blueprint for global domination, a roadmap for the manipulation of entire nations, and at the center of it all was Africa, the heart of the revolution that had never been allowed to fully bloom. Ibrahim's mind raced as he processed the information. This was more than just a story of betrayal. It was a call to action. The revolution had not failed. It had been stopped. And now, Ibrahim was holding the key to unlocking the truth. The boy watched him, his expression unreadable. "Now you know," he said softly. "Now you see the truth." Ibrahim's heart pounded in his chest as he looked up at the boy, a new determination settling over him. "We cannot let this lie continue," he said, his voice steady but filled with the weight of what lay ahead. "We have to finish what Sankara started." The boy nodded, his eyes bright with understanding. "The world isn't ready for the truth, but that doesn't matter. It's time to make them hear it." As Ibrahim stood up, holding the chest tightly in his hands, he knew that his journey was just beginning. The fight for Africa's soul was far from over. And this time, the truth would not be buried again. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a soft glow over the land. The graveyard was silent once more, but Ibrahim knew that the silence was not one of peace. It was the silence before a storm, the storm of revolution, truth, and justice. And this time, the world would not be able to ignore it. If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing for more inspiring tales of hope, healing, and unexpected kindness. Hit the like button and share this with someone who needs it today.